Hello everyone, you're welcome back to my channel. Thank you for clicking on this video. So today we'll be making children's trouser. Okay, so I want to show you how to draft and sew children's trouser. So I actually want to make it on this white fabric, but for the sake of tutorial I would be doing the drafting on the paper, because if I mark on the white fabric you would not see the markings clearly, because I would not want to stain the white. So we'll mark on the paper. Okay, so whatever I'll be doing on this paper can actually be done directly on your fabric. Okay, so for you to know how to fold your fabric, it is your round tie measurement divided by 2 plus at least 3 inches. So that's what you need on fold. Okay, so you have to fold your fabric and you measure your round tie measurement divided by 2 plus at least 3 inches. Okay, yes, so that is what you need. So now let's put the fabric aside and draft on our paper. So I'll be marking out 1 inch from this side and 1 inch from the top. So that's 1 inch we're taking out is for our allowance. Okay, that is the space for placing our seam allowance, and at the top the space for joining the band. That is the allowance we need for joining the band. So that is what I will do right now. So after marking out these lines, I'll now place the vertical measurements. Okay, so I'm taking 1 inch band because it's a child's trouser, so I'll take out 1 inch. Okay, so that is where our measurement will start from, because the band will now complete it. So I'm taking out 1 inch. 1 inch is for the band that I would use. So whatever measurement of band you're using, you're going to take it off, okay, before placing the vertical measurements. And the vertical measurements are the hip points, the crotch depth, and the knee points, and the full length of the trouser, that is the ankle level. So to know the crotch depth, you can just take the round hip measurement divided by 4. Okay, so that will give you the crotch depth. Or you tell the child to sit on a hard surface, then you measure from the waist where the child will be putting on the trouser to the top of the surface, to the top of the seat. Okay, you get the crotch depth. So I'm marking out the vertical measurement. So that is the hip point there, and here is the crotch depth. Okay, so let's just mark it out, and here is the knee point. So you measure from the waist to the knee point, and from the waist to the full length of the trouser or the ankle. So that is it there. Then I added 1 inch for hemming. Okay, so that is the 1 inch for hemming. So this is what we have here now. So let's label it so I will know: hip, crotch, knee, then ankle. Okay, so that is it. All right, having done this, now we're going to now place the round hip measurement divided by 4. Yes, round hip divided by 4. So that's what we're going to place here now. So just place it. So in this case it is a 6.5. Okay, you're also going to mark it on the crotch depth. Okay, so I'm making this trouser for a 4-year old boy. Okay, so you also mark it at the waist as well, then you roll it out. Okay, so you mark the round hip divided by 4 at the waist, at the hip point, and at the crotch depth level. So that is what we have. So by the time you have done this, now want to get the crotch extension. So you measure what we have here, this round hip divided by 4. So you're going to just divide it by 4 again. Okay, so that very measurement there, you divide it by 4. So this is how you can divide it, by just folding your tape. So by so doing, you get the crotch extension. Okay, so the measurement you get after folding your tape, or after dividing that measurement by 4, that is after dividing the round hip divided by 4 again, that is what you place there. So I just hope you're following. Just watch what I'm doing. So by the time you mark that measurement, now we want to place our crotch curve. Okay, so I just came out by 1 inch. Then I would connect it, okay, from that point to the hip point. Just make a curve. So we don't want it too deep and too straight, because that is the crotch extension. Okay, so I'm trying to blend it out. Okay, so it doesn't have to be so curvy or so straight. So that is a crotch extension, that is the crotch curve there, right? So now we'll take our waist measurement. So we're measuring from the left towards the right. Okay, so I'll be from the right towards the left, whichever, but just measure from the outer part towards the inner part, like this. So you place the waist circumference divide by 4. So that is the waist divide by 4. So note that all the measurements I'm placing here is just exactly how I want the trouser to be on the child. Okay, so I'm not going to add any allowance. Like, I've taken the actual measurement I need on the child. So when you have placed the waist measurement, you now connect it to the hip and the crotch, just like I did. Okay, so now you also measure what you have here, this crotch extension. Measure it and divide it by 2. So you divide by 2 by simply folding your tape, then you mark. Okay, so this very measurement you have here, you're going to mark it all the way from the top to the hem of the trouser. So this is for our trouser shaping. This is the ghetto line, or the grain line. Okay, so just place that measurement like that. Just measure it and mark it all the way down. Okay, so now we have drawn our grain line. Okay, so this is to help shaping our trouser. So you come to the knee point and at the ankle point. Now we're going to place the measurements. So what you do here is just the round nail divide by 4. So whatever you get, you place it from this side and at the other side. So by the time you place it, what you'll be getting will be your round nail divided by 2. Because normally you're supposed to divide your round nail and ankle by 2. But because we want to apportion it equally here, so divided it by 4. Whatever you get, you place on the right side and on the left side. So that when you measure it now, what you're getting is your round nail divided by 2. So I hope this is clear. So first of all, divide your round nail by 4. From the grain line, you place the measurement you got towards this side, and still from the grain line, you place the measurement towards the other side. So we're also doing the same thing at the ankle. So you take your ankle measurement, just like I'm showing on the screen, and you divide it by 4. You just apportion it just this way. Then you connect. Now we're connecting from the crotch to that measurement and to the ankle as well. So just follow the method. Just follow what I'm doing and you would understand it. Okay, so just connect it like this. Okay, then from here you also connect to the points we have made at the ankle, just like this. So with this now, you see that your trouser is well shaped. Okay, so this very method of making trousers is applicable to both adults, female and male. This is the method I use in making trousers for both female adults and male adults. Okay, for those in my trouser class, you know that this is how I draft trousers, and it has always come out excellently well. So you can still use this method for children and for adults, both male and female. So the only difference between male and female trouser is the ease you add to it, and depending on what the person wants actually, because we also have loose trousers for female. So but normally if you just need basic trouser, the male trouser is a bit freer than the female trouser, most especially at the hip and at the waist area, because men like the trousers to be a bit free and they use belts on it. Okay, but you can still have fitted trouser for men. So now I'm extending the measurements at the hem allowance, so that by the time we fold to hem, it will match up. So you don't mark it straight. Just see the way I extended it. You can either do it this way, or when you are cutting, you fold your paper or your fabric at the ankle. You fold it at the ankle before you now cut through. So you see me doing that. So what I'm doing right now is adding seam allowance. I'm adding half-inch seam allowance all round. So this seam allowance is just what we need for stitching it. So you don't need so much allowance in your trousers. And at the top here, I'm also adding half-inch allowance for joining the band to the trouser. Okay, so that is what I'm simply doing. So we're just adding half-inch all round, every part of it except the lower part, because we've already added hem allowance. Okay, so I'll do this and I'll mark it out. This is simply what we need for stitching it, and we'll have a perfect looking trousers. Okay, so now we have our allowance all around our trouser pattern. We're going to cut it out right now. To cut it now, you can either just follow the shape the way it is, because we've already extended the hem allowance, or you fold it exactly at the hem line. Okay, so I just want to cut out the excess paper. Okay, so you fold at the hem line like so. Just fold it before you cut through. So I'm doing all that just how to be able to fold it. Now, by the time you have folded it this way, you can now, cut through the trouser. So in this way, when hemming it, it will align. But if you cut it straight, by the time you fold to hem, it will not align. Okay, so I just hope this is clear. So now let's just cut out our trouser. So after cutting, this is what we have. Okay, so this is our trouser pattern for a 4-year-old. So this is our allowance. By the time you fold it, you see it matching up. So you can see it's matching up. But if I hadn't extended it, it would have, be short, would be having shortage at that point. So this is it. Okay, so now we'll cut the back. Okay, so we're going to use this front pattern to cut the back, but definitely it's not going to be exact. Okay, yes, it's not going to be exact. Okay, but before we do that, let's talk about the pockets. So this trouser will be having pocket. So we're just going to measure like 1.5 inch, okay, from the actual measurement of the trouser, not including the allowance. So 1.5 inch, and you extend it to the hip point, or like you can take ½ inch above the hip, or 1 inch. So it depends on what you want, how long you want your trouser to be. So I'm just going to mark like 1 inch or ½ inch before the hip point, then connect it. Okay, so that's how we would have the pockets. Yes, so this part will be cutting it out to create our pockets. So that is it. So you can just have it this way. You can even make it further. You can mark further into the trouser. So it just all depends, because normally by the time we want to stitch it, this same allowance part will no longer be there because we are cutting it out. Okay, so you just considering this age and size of whoever you're making it for, you know the size of pocket that can take the child's hands. Okay, so I'm just like adding a little bit more, adding like ½ inch more. So we can go with this. Let's mark it and see how wide it is. Okay, so you're considering the hand of the child that will be going into the pocket. So let's work with this. So this is just simply how we would cut out the pocket. So now let's use this very pattern to cut the back. So for the back, would have some differences. Okay, the back would not just be like the front. For the back, you need a wider and a longer paper or fabric, because the back will be a bit higher than the front at the top area because of the butt. Okay, so it doesn't matter whether the child has big bum bum or not. Whenever you're making a trouser, you need to consider that the back has to be a bit higher than the front, because normally the back is not so flat, it's not as flat as the front. So make sure you have up to 2 to 3 inches at the top and by the sides of the pattern where you're placing the front, just like what I'm doing. Okay, so you should have enough fabric to be able to create the back. So you're going to measure what we have here. Yes, from this point to that green line. So just follow what I'm doing and you find the midpoint. So I just folded my tape to find the midpoint. So that's the midpoint. So you're also going to measure your crotch extension. Okay, so whatever you have there as your crotch extension, you're not going to place it from this point. So remember, you're taking the seam allowance. So because you're taking the seam allowance, you're going to minus the seam allowance at the top here. I don't know if that makes sense, because you're taking the seam allowance at the other point like this. From this point you're including the seam allowance, but if you're taking only this point excluding the seam allowance, it means at the top here. Okay, see here now, this is without the seam allowance. Just here it's without the seam allowance. So at the top now, you're going to mark from the top here like this. Whatever you got at this side, that's what you're going to mark from the top here. Okay, so just take it that way so you won't be confused. So you are removing the seam allowance at this side because you already have seam allowance at this other top. Okay, so now for this part, the crotch extension for the back is 2 inches. Just 2 inches is standard. Okay, from this point 2 inches, then from that point you mark 2 inches, just step down by ½ inch. Okay, that's what I'm doing. So you step down by ½ inch. Okay, now we're going to connect it to get the crotch curve for the back. So at this point now, I'm stepping out by 2 inches. This is just to have a neat crotch curve, because we don't want it too curvy, neither do we want it too straight. So that's why I just marked 2 inches from there. So that 2 inches as well is standard. So now we'll just connect like this. So if the video is too fast, you can always rewind it to understand, please. So by the time you have connected this point now, you then, curve this one a bit. So just connect it. It's not going to be sharp, it's not going to be straight, just a little bit curving. And that is the back curve, the back crotch curve. Yes, this is how you should have your back crotch curve, so that you won't have your crotch encroaching into your butt, or having any issues at the back. So now we'll be placing the waist measurement for the back part. So I just want to extend this point here, because the the point where you join your trousers must align. So I don't know if that makes sense. If you understand what I'm saying, just extend this line so that you can now place the waist measurement for the back. So the waist measurement you have at the front here, just measure what you have at the front, including the allowance. That is the same measurement you place at the back, connecting it from that point at the back to wherever you have that measurement on this line. So I'm still measuring the waist to see what we'll have. Okay, so that is the waist measurement. Now just direct your tape from this back to wherever you have that same waist measurement meeting on this line. So that is where I have it. Okay, now I would connect it so that your back waist measurement and the front will be the same, except if you're adding that at the back. Then you can now add your that allowance measurement. Just you add the measurement for that allowance. Okay, if not, the back waist and the front waist will be the same. So I'm not using that for this child's trouser. Okay, so when you have done this, now you now mark out ½ inch from the crotch and point like this at the hip. sorry, at the way knee you mark half, at the ankle you mark half. Okay, so this is because the back pattern of trousers is wider than the front. Yes, if you check every trouser, you see that the back is wider than the front. So you just connect it this way. So I hope you're not confused about the lines. So just follow what I'm doing and follow the explanation. You understand it, okay? So just connect this way. So this is to have the back of our trouser being wider than the front, and at the end everything would still match up, everything would still be okay. So connect it like this. Remember, we are creating the back part of our trouser. So that is it for this side, and at the other side we are going to do the same thing. For adult trouser you can use 1 inch, but for little boys trouser like this, ½ inch is okay. So what I actually meant to measure there was ½ inch, which I corrected later. So don't use 1 inch, to be too bogus, because we are making a corporate trouser. Okay, so it shouldn't be too bogus, and it shouldn't be too fitted. So it's a straight cut trouser. Okay, so I'm now going to connect the points I've made, okay, which I later reduced to ½ inch anyway. So take ½ inch for children. So just the way you connected this way, that's how you're going to connect the other side. Okay, so just connect. So don't forget, I say for children like this, ½ inch, okay, because I later reduced it. So for adult, 1 inch is okay. So all you need to do is just mark it out and you connect like this. So we're not adding any seam allowance again, because the seam allowance for the front is also inclusive in the measurements we have here. Okay, so what we have is just how the back would be. You're not going to start adding seam allowance again, because we've already taken the seam allowance from the front. Okay, so we'll have our back pattern there. So that is how to simply draft your trousers. Like I said, this very pattern of drafting trouser works for both children and adults. Okay, so now let me remove the front pattern so that you see what we have for the back, and you can see how the crotch for the back is slanted. This is just how it should be. This is to accommodate the butt, the bum bum. Okay, so this is our back pattern for our trouser. Now we are going to cut it out and go ahead to cut our zipper fly, and whatever we'll be needing for this trouser I will go ahead to cut on our fabric as well. So here we have our trouser pattern, the front and the back. Okay, so now we'll cut on the fabric. So now I want to cut the zipper fly. Okay, so remember we're making a corporate trouser, so it's going to have zipper fly. So I folded the paper and I'm measuring 2 inches. So these 2 inches I'm measuring includes the allowance for stitching the zipper fly. So I'm just taking 2 inches. So the reason I folded the paper is I need 2 pieces of this just to make it neat. But if you're going to like weave the edges, you will not even need 2 pieces of it. Of this, 1 inch is okay. I mean, sorry, just 1 piece is okay. So now just watch how I'm placing it. So I'll just match it up like this. Okay, I'm matching it up at the point that I marked. So I'm matching it up, and I would just from the hip point now just make a curve up like this. So it's just like ½ inch from that hip point up. Okay, it's nothing difficult, just follow what I did right now, you get your zipper fly. Okay, so this is just it. We're going to cut it out. Okay, so this is it. You can just shape it anyhow you want. There's no hard and fast rule about this. Okay, so these are zipper fly. This is how it's going to be. Okay, so your zipper fly usually should be at the hip point. Okay, so that is it. Now let's cut the shield. So the shield is just a rectangular shape. So I also folded it like I said, because for the shield we'll just be having it folded, and then I'll show you how I'll stitch it. So the same measurement I used for the fly, which is 2 inches, that's the same measurement I'll be using for the shield. Then that is the width is 2 inches, then the length is the same as long as the zipper fly. Okay, so that is simply how to cut the shield. It's very simple. So I'll show you how to stitch this. Okay, so we are done drafting. This is the shield and this is the zipper fly. Okay, so I hope I spelled it correctly. Shield, whatever. Still going ahead to write it. So that is the zipper fly and the shield. So our pattern for now is complete. Okay, we'll be also cutting the pocket later on, but for now this is what we have. Go ahead and transfer this to our fabric. Okay, so I've transferred it to the fabric, as you can see, and cut out our shield and fly exactly the way it is. So I'm just going to cut it open at this point because we're going to stitch it. So that's why I said I folded it to have 2 pieces of it. Okay, we're just going to stitch this part of it. I'm going to stitch it so I can have a neat edge. Normally we're supposed to just overlock it, okay, but if you don't have overlocking machine, just simply stitch it. Yes, so this will have. All right, I want to cut out the pocket right now, so we'll just cut it out the way we have marked it. Okay, now so I just want to make use of this first one. I think that will be okay. From the seam allowance here, you go in a bit like so. Okay, just cut in a bit from the seam allowance. See the way I'm cutting it? Just go in like this before you then move this way. Okay, so you see I didn't just cut it straight down. I came in this way, then I went like this. So just follow it. Okay, so remember, before cutting out, your fabric has to be on fold. So you're having 2 pieces of the front and 2 pieces of the back. Remember what I said initially, you need to fold your fabric. Okay, so to fold your fabric is the round tie measurement divided by 2 plus at least 3 inches. That will give you the measurement you need. So by the time you're done cutting, the front has 2 pieces, the back has 2 pieces. So now marking this hip point, because that's where we're going to stitch our crotch curve up to, leaving the space for zipper. So we are stitching here and we're leaving this point open for our zipper. Okay, so here we'll just stitch by 1/2 inch. Remember the allowance we added is 1/2 inch. So you can either mark it or you notch it, so whichever one, but that is to indicate that that is where you're going to end your stitches, that is where you're stitching up to. Okay, so remember we are stitching by 1/2 inch and that's what I'm marking. So you're going to stitch from this point to this point like this. This simply is what you need to stitch. Okay, and I'm trying to dim the light a bit so I can see the markings. Okay, so that is it. You're going to stitch just that, and then for the back, okay, or for the zipper fly, to stitch this point. Then for the shield, you're just going to stitch this way and this way like this. Okay, leaving this side open for turning it. So that is what we're going to do. Remember, you're not cutting open the shield, it's just like that. Then for the back, you go ahead and stitch the crotch extension by ½ inch. That is the crotch curve by ½ inch. Remember, our seam allowance is ½ inch, so we're going to maintain that. Okay. All right, guys, I'm done stitching. You can see for the front. So when working with white and you have a bright light, it seems not to show. So this is what I have stitched for the front. Okay, you can see it. This is what I have stitched. And for the back, I've stitched the curve. You can see this is what I just stitched for now. And by the time we open it up, this is what we have. Okay, this is what we have. And for the front, this is our space for zipper, as you can see. Then the fly for the shield, like I showed to you, just stitched this way, then I turned it open from the other side, and we'll have a neat fly. And for the neat shield, for the fly, I stitched this way. Remember, I cut it open and I had two pieces, so I stitched that way, then turned it over like this and stitched this side. I stopped stitch on this side, and that is what we have here. You can see our shield and our fly looking neat. So now let me show you how to go about stitching the zipper fly and the shield. All right, you get your zip. Don't mind the color of my zip. So this is the front side and this is the back side of my zip. So now you're going to turn it the front side down. The front side should be on the fabric. Okay, so I hope you saw what I did. I turned the zip. Now you take your shield, the part you stitched should be on the zipper like this. So you're going to place the zipper in between the trouser and the shield, just like this. Remember, I said you're going to turn your zip facing down. That is the good side of your zipper should face down. You place your shield like this, so the zipper in between the trouser and the shield, and you would stitch. So I'll just hold it down with pin like so. So I'm just holding it down with pin so you can see what we have there. So I'll just go ahead and stitch just like this. Okay, by the time we turn it, this is what we'll be having. Yes, then we'll top stitch here as well. So now over to the fly. So you just place it this way. Okay, you can see, just place it on the, okay, now let me just make it clear. This is how you place it. Okay, then you go ahead to stitch it. Just stitch by 1/4 inch. Yes, 1/4 inch is what you need. So I'm also going to hold it with pin to show you what it will look like by the time I go ahead to stitch it. So you just stitch by 1/4 inch up to where you have the zipper fly ending like this. Okay, so by the time you're done stitching, at this side you have the shield like this, and at this side you have the fly. Then you're going to fold in the fly this way, then you place it on the trouser like this. So I just decided to do it one after the other so I don't get confused. So remember, you stitch the zipper in between the trouser and the shield like this. Okay, and this is what we have, and you just top stitch. So when you open it up, you can see what we have here. Okay, so let me zip it back. Now at this other side, this is the shield, right? So you stitch by 1/4 inch, then you turn it over like this. Turn it over. Okay, then you bring it to overlap the zipper like so. Don't over fold it, just use it to overlap the zipper a bit. Don't push it too much. Just by the time it has covered the zipper slightly like this, you are good to go. Okay, so this is what you should do. Just overlap it slightly like this. So you can give it a good press there for it to relax well. So when you have done this now, just straighten it. Make sure it is straight. It is, covering the zipper well, but not so much and not over pulling it. So at this point, I'll just hold it down here with pin. And when you're holding it down here, make sure that at the back, the shield is out of the way, because we want to stitch the fly and the zipper. So just watch what I'll do. Okay, so by the time you have pinned it down, now you know that it is covering. Now you turn to this other side, take the shield out of the way. We want to stitch this zipper part and the fly together, just like this. Only the zipper fly and the zipper. So make sure this shield is out of the way. Just pin it down so I don't end up stitching it together and you'll not be able to open your zipper. So go ahead now and stitch this point, just the zipper and the fly. Okay, so I'm done stitching it. You can see what we have. Now remove the pins and let's turn it over to the other side. Remove the pins. Then we'll have our trouser, as you can see. Okay, so by the time we open it up, you see what we have there. All right, so open it and you can see how it is. Then close it back. So we're not done yet. Now you just fold it back normally, just the way you overlapped it, and we're going to stitch this way. Okay, just curving it from the top to the lower part there. So I'm just pinning it because I want everything to stay, and make sure your fly is, like, the shield is out of the way when doing this. Like I said, if you stitch it together, you will not be able to open up your trouser. So push the shield towards the part where it should be. Okay, and hold it down there with your pin. So let me simply mark what I mean. So you're just going to, like, mark it this way. So this stitch you're going to make sure it is touching the zipper fly at the back. So if you can see through the trouser, you see that I'm marking it. So this stitch would be on top of the zipper fly. So you can see how I marked it. Okay, so go ahead and stitch this way. Okay, so remember that the other side at the back, the shield should be out of the way. Just go to your sewing machine and top stitch on. So after top stitching, this is what we have. You can see how it is. Okay, so by the time we open it up, you can see our zipper, our fly, and the shield. Okay, you can see our trouser is taking shape already. All right, so let's zip it back. So at the top now, we'll be adding band, don't forget, and we'll also add our pocket. So now I have cut out the fabric for the pocket. Okay, so it measures 11 inches on this side and 7.5 on this side. So the size of the pocket bag depends on the size of your trouser. Okay, so you're going to use a pocket bag that would match up with your trouser. So for this little boy of 4 years, you can see the measurement I took for this size of pocket. Okay, so we're just going to place our trouser on the pocket bag like this. So see the way I'm placing it. Okay, so we're going to just cut it out. So I know that since I'm working with white, you might not be seeing it clearly. So let me illustrate this using paper. So I'm just going to cut out exactly what I have here on paper. Okay, so that is the paper representing the pocket bag. Okay, you can see. So now I want to use it to show you how to go ahead to cut out your pocket bag to fit in to your trousers. So you're going to place your trouser like this. Match it up at the top and at the sides. Just match it up this way. So you can see what I did. Now we're going to cut it out, okay? So I'm actually holding it with pin so that it doesn't move away from the point that I have placed it, because you need to match it up like this. Okay, then you cut out. We're cutting out this part that is seen, just like this. So we want our pocket bag to match up to fit the trouser. So you cut it out this way. Then you bring out your pocket bag. So remember, you're doing this for the two pocket bags. So just place them on each other. Then if you're working with a fabric that has front and back, you need to place them good sides facing each other, because if you don't face them good side facing each other, you end up having one sided pocket bag. That is, the two will be just for one side. Okay, so don't forget, if you're working with a fabric that has two sides, make sure the good sides are facing each other. Then you cut out the parts that need to be cut out, just like I'm doing right here. Okay, so I'm using the paper to show you so that it will be clearer to you. So you're going to just cut out that space, that part. So after cutting it, we're now going to match it up on our trouser. Okay, so when you're working with fabric that has two sides, the only way you know how your pocket is matching is by placing the good side of the pocket bag to the good side of the trouser. But since I'm working with the same side fabric, I'm just going to place it like this. So remember, if it's a fabric with two sides, the good sides facing each other is what you're going to do. So that would help you know the pocket for each of the sides. Okay, so just going to place it this way, and we're stitching it just like this. Just going to stitch that part. So let me just hold it down with pin, then I'll go ahead and stitch it and show you the next thing to do. So after holding it down with pin, I'll just go ahead and stitch it. So after stitching, this is what you'll be having at the other side, at the good side. Okay, so now you're going to join this side just like this, fold it over like this, and you would stitch. Okay, so I'm just holding all this with pin, and the same way I'm holding it with pin, that is just how I will stitch it. So I'm just doing this to show you, because I might not be able to show you the stitching part. So go ahead and stitch this side. Okay, so if you are going to overlock it, you stitch it that way, but if you are not going to overlock it, you can turn it this other way and stitch it from inside, so the rough part of it will be inside the pocket and not at the back side of the pocket. I don't know if you understand. So you can see how I folded it inward, and I would stitch it at this point. So let me finish pinning it, then it will be clearer to you. So I just assume that I have stitched it that way. Okay, now you take it back inside, and you can see what we have here. You'll be revealing a clean outer pocket. Okay, so when you have done this, now you flip it over under the trouser. Then you match it by the sides. You just make sure the sides are matching, the sides of the pocket bag. So I just want to take this again so you understand. This is how we have it, right? Okay, so you just turn it, just take it under the trouser, take it under, that is, take it back to the trouser, match up the sides. By the time the sides are matching up, the pocket bag and the trouser sides are matching up like this, you would have your pocket sitting nicely. You can see what I'm doing. So just follow the illustration. Okay, so just place it this way. So it has to match up at the sides and at the top. So but first of all, match up the sides like this. Okay, so let me hold it down with pin. Yes, then at the top now, you match it up. So don't forget, by the time you have stitched this pocket back to the trouser, you iron it out. So in that way, everything will sit nicely. But remember, I'm just using pin to hold it to show you. So you iron it nicely, and you can even top stitch. Yes, at the pockets. At that point, you stitched. So I'm just trying to set it well, both at the sides and at the top like this. Okay, so let me hold it there with pin, and you can see our pocket. Okay, so you can see. So by the time I go ahead to stitch it, everything would relax. So I'm just holding it with pin, and that is why it is looking this rough. So everything would relax, and you can see the pockets. Okay, so what I've done to this side, I will do to the other side as well. So when you turn it to the back, you'll be seeing your pocket bag. You can see. Okay, you can see the size, how it is. It fits the trouser. It's not too big and it's not too small, and the child can put his hand into it. So I'll go ahead and stitch it, and also do same to the other side. Okay, so I've gone ahead to stitch the pockets, and you can see what we have. Okay, so you can see our pocket bag neatly sewn. Okay, so I stitch the side and the top, and I also top stitch the side of the pocket, as you can see. So just give it a good press. Okay, and you can see our pocket, and at the other side you can see the pocket bag, our zipper fly, everything sitting nicely. So when you have gotten to this stage, the next thing is to join the back and the front. Okay, placing good sides facing each other, then you go ahead and stitch the sides. So you stitch the sides. Okay, after stitching the sides, you now stitch this lower part. So remember, the back is longer than the front, so but you have to still match it up. Okay, that is at this crotch area. The essence of doing that is so that by the time the trouser is worn, it will sit nicely at the butt. So we're also going to fix our band. So I've gone ahead to stitch it to save time. I've joined the back and the front. You can see what we have. Okay, and I've also hemmed the lower part. Yes, our trouser is almost complete. So what is left now is the band. Yes, we're going to add our band and give it a very good press. So I'm just actually doing this very fast. It's a costume I'm making for my boy, so I'm just rushing it without ironing. But normally you're going to iron it, and you can see the back is longer than the front by the sides. Okay, so I went ahead to hem it, and we'll have a perfect looking trouser. So by the time I give it a very good press, everything will sit nicely, and I will add our band. We just want to cut out this top, this excess part of the zip, before going ahead to take our measurement for our band. Okay, so just be careful while doing this. Yes, and this is our trouser. So right now we'll open up the zipper, and we'll measure round the waist. So just take the round waist measurement, and with that you would cut the band. Okay, so after measuring, I have 24 inches. That is for the waist. Okay, so remember I said I just added the allowance I needed for the child. It's not as if the 24 is his actual waist measurement. No, I want it to be a bit free. I'm just going to put wear it with belt. So now our band length, remember the band I said we'll be taking 1 inch for our band. So because you need 1 inch, what you will do is cut out 3 inches. That is the width of the band. Okay, 3 inches. So that by the time you're done folding it, you have the 1 inch, and this is it. So that is 3 by 24. So by the time you're done folding it, you can see you have your 1 inch band. So we'll go ahead and stitch it. Now, if you're making a professional trouser, you're going to iron stay or interface to your band. But this is just a costume I'm making for my child. So you're going to see the end result. You're going to see the result of it. Okay, so I'll go ahead now and just stitch the band round. So I'm stitching, I place it at the wrong side of the trouser this way. So I'll go ahead and stitch. So by the time I'm done stitching it, I will then bring it over and top stitch. So bear in mind that I didn't cut exact 24 inches, please. Remember the round measurement we took is 24, but I cut out 26, so I can have a little excess for hook. Okay, so you can see the excess. So I took like 1 inch before joining to the trouser. You can see like we have 1 inch excess outer there. That is at the, you can see what I have. Just look at it. Okay, I took out 1 inch before I joined. So after joining it round, I'll go ahead, fold it over to the good side and top stitch. So that is just what I'll do. So you can see I've done the first stitching from the inside. You can see. Okay, so now I'll fold it over. Just fold it over like this. Just what I'm doing, I'm taking the 1/2 inch, then I'll fold it over this way. So I'll hold it down with pin, then I'll go ahead and match up the other sides. Okay, so you go to the center of the trouser or this other side as well, you fold and you just pin it down. Then you go to the back, because you want to match up the center of the band to the center of the trouser, so that you not have any issues when you're stitching it. You know, when you're folding and stitching, if it is not well matched up, you'll be having issues. So this part as well, you fold it and match it up to the center of the trouser, and we'll go ahead and stitch all round and have our band. Okay, so just arrange everything how it should be. So you're folding by 1/2 inch and using it to cover the seam of the initial stitch. So I hope you understand that. So you can see it's easier when you pin it down before you go ahead to start stitching. Okay, so by the time you pin it down, you see that everything is in place, everything is aligning, then you go ahead and stitch. Okay, now I'm done stitching the band. You can see all half there, so just have to give it a good press. So you can see the excess I have at the band. Remember I told you I took 26 inches, so you can see the excess. Now we'll fold it in this way. Just fold it in. So it's better to actually have this excess than to have shortage, because if you don't have enough length of the band and by the time you're stitching it didn't go round, you have a problem. So now this is simply what you do: fold it in and top stitch. Okay, so I just fold it in and top stitch, and I also leave a little room for hook, you know, have trouser hook. So you need that little extension for the hook. So you can see what I've done. Just fold the rough edges in and go ahead and top stitch. Okay, and we'll have your trouser looking neat. Yes, you can see what we have. So now you see the space for the hook. Okay, so we're just going to fix trouser hook at this point, and our trouser is set. So I'll give it a good press. So remember I said that this trouser is actually not the actual waist of the child. The child will be using belts. So would add a belt holder. Okay, I think that is what it's called. Yes, we'll add our loops for holding the belts. So guys, I hope you're loving this video. Give it a like, share with your friends, and if you haven't subscribed to this channel up till now, please hit on that subscribe button. So I've gone ahead to sew the loop for the belts. Okay, so what I actually did was just take 3 inches. Yeah, the width of the loop is 3 inches, then I folded it, or rather 2 inches or 2.5, then folded it this way, and I went ahead to top stitch, so that I won't have any issue of turning, you know, just I top stitched on it, and that is it. So I'm just going to measure what I need and cut it out. So 3 inches is okay for this, considering the size of the belt we'll be using for this trouser. So 3 inches is okay. So I'll just use this very one to measure the rest and cut. So for how long your loop should be, just something you can eyeball. You know the length of loop that would go around the trouser you're making. So just make as long as possible, okay, depending on the size of the trouser. So for this very one, we'll be having like 2 at the front, and we'll have 1 at each side, and maybe 2 or 1 at the back. Then at the back, you make sure that you have it at the center of the back. So after cutting it, this is what we'll have. Then I'll go ahead to start stitching it, okay? So this can actually be done when you are done making your trouser. Normally I fix it into the band, but you can still achieve a neat work even after you've sewn the trouser, okay? So let me show you how to do that. So now I'll pick one of the loop and I will just fold it and place. So like I said, we'll have 2 at the front, 1 at the sides each, and at the center. So since I'm actually working with white, you might not see it. So like what I'm doing now is just measuring it, so I'll know the exact point to fix it. So I want it to be equal. So on this side it should be at the center of this side, and on the other side it should be at the center as well. So after marking out where I want my loop to be, I'll just pick one, fold it and pin it down there. So it's folded so the rough edge will be underneath. So you can see what I did, then pin it down. Then you also fold this one again like this, and you pin it down there. So you go ahead and you top stitch on it, okay? Yes, you go ahead and top stitch. That is it. So let me just try to do this with a different colored something, okay? So let me do this with paper. I'm cutting out paper. So let's assume that this is our loop. Sorry, yeah, so let's assume that this is our loop. You just fold it, place it where you want it to be, then you hold it down with your pin and go ahead and stitch it, okay? So I just want you to understand this. Then at this other side you fold as well, okay? So depending on the size of the belt, so your loop should be able to, your belt should be able to pass through the loop, okay? So you go ahead and stitch. So that is simple. So you go ahead, do this everywhere you want to have the loop, and your trouser will be ready. So you can see what I'm doing, making sure that the space is enough for the belt to pass through. So this is the end, and this is how it looks on my boy. Remember I said it's a costume, so he represented the Navy in his school graduation, and this is the outfit I made for him, though I couldn't make a video on the top part and the cap, but at least you have the trouser. Thank you for watching. See you in my next video. Remain blessed.